Welcome to Stories with Liz and another thought-provoking story by Guy de Maupassant. This one is called The Necklace and was first released in 1888. The Necklace. She was one of those pretty and charming young girls who sometimes are born, as if by a slip of faith, into a family of clerks. She had no dowry, no expectations, no way of being known, understood, loved, and wed by a rich and distinguished man, so she let herself be married to a little clerk of the Ministry of Public Instructions. She dressed plainly because she could not dress well, but she was as unhappy as if she had really fallen from a higher station, for with women there is neither caste nor rank, for beauty, grace, and charm take the place of birth and breeding. Natural ingenuity, instinct for what is elegant, and a supple mind are their sole hierarchy, and often make of women of the people the equals of very great ladies. Mathilde suffered ceaselessly. Feeling herself born to enjoy all delicacy and all luxuries, she was distressed at the poverty of her dwelling, and at the barrenness of the walls, at the shabby chairs, at the ugliness of the curtains, at all those things of which other women of her rank would never even have been conscious, tortured and made her angry. The sight of the little Breton peasant who did her humble housework aroused in her despairing regrets and bewildering dreams. She thought of silent antechambers hung with oriental tapestry, illuminated by all bronze candelabra, and of two great footmen in knee breeches who sleep in the big armchairs, made drowsy by the opposite heat of the stove. She thought of long reception halls hung with ancient silk, of the dainty cabinets containing priceless curiosities, of little coquettish perfumed reception rooms made for chattering at 5 o'clock with intimate friends, with men famous and sought after, whom all women envy and whose attention they all desire. When she sat down to dinner, before the round table covered with a tablecloth in use 3 days, opposite her husband, who uncovered the soup tureen and declared with a delighted air, "Ah, the good soup! I don't know anything better than that," she thought of dainty dinners, of shining silverware, of tapestry that peopled the walls with ancient personages, and with strange birds flying in the midst of a fairy forest. And she thought of delicious dishes served on marvelous plates, and of the whispering gallantries to which you listen with a sphinx-like smile while you are eating the wings of a quail. She had no gowns, no jewelries, nothing. And she loved nothing but that. She felt made for that. She would have liked so much to please, to be envied, to be charming, to be sought after. She had a friend, a former schoolmate at the convent, who was rich, and whom she did not like to go see any more, because she felt so sad when she came home. But one evening her husband came home with a triumphant air, and holding a large envelope in his hand. "There," said he, "there's something for you." She tore the paper quickly, and drew out a printed card, which bore these words: "The Minister of Public Instructions and Madame Gorgeous Rapinoe request the honor of M. and Madame Loisel's company at the place of the Ministry on Monday evening, January 18th. Instead of being delighted, as her husband had hoped, she threw the invitation on the table crossly, muttering, "What do you wish me to do with that?" "My dear, I thought you would be glad. You never go out, and this is such a fine opportunity. I had great trouble to get it. Everyone wants to go, it is very select, and they are not giving out many invitations to clerks. The whole official world will be there." She looked at him with an irritated glance and said impatiently, "And what do you wish me to put on my back?" He had not thought of that. He stammered, Why, the gown you go to the theatre in. It looks very well to me." He stopped, distracted, seeing that his wife was weeping. Two great tears ran slowly from the corners of her eyes towards the corners of her mouth. "What is the matter? What is the matter?" he asked. By a violent effort she conquered her grief and replied in a calm voice while she wiped away her tears. "Nothing. Only I have no gown, and therefore I cannot go to this ball. Give your card to some colleague whose wife is better equipped than I am." He was in despair. He resumed, "Come, let us see, Mathilde. How much would it cost, a suitable gown, which you could use on other occasions, something very simple?" She reflected several seconds, making her calculations, and wondering also what sum she could ask without drawing on herself an immediate refusal, and a frightened exclamation from the economical clerk. Finally, she replied hesitantly, "I don't know exactly, but I think I could manage with 400 francs. He grew a little pale, because he was laying aside just that amount to buy a gun and treat himself to a little shooting next summer on the plain of Nanterre, with several friends who went to shoot larks there of a Sunday. But he said, "Very well, I will give you 400 francs, but try to get something pretty." The day of the ball drew nearer, and Madame Loisel seemed sad, uneasy, anxious. Her frock was ready, however. Her husband said to her one evening, "What is the matter? Come, you've seemed very queer these last 3 days." And she answered, "It annoys me not to have a single piece of jewelry. Not a single ornament, nothing to put on. I shall look poverty-stricken. I would almost rather not go at all." "You might wear natural flowers," said her husband. "They're quite fashionable at this time of year. For 10 francs you can get 2 or 3 magnificent roses." She was not convinced. "No, there's nothing more humiliating than looking poor among other women who are rich." "How stupid you are!" her husband cried. "Go and look up your friend, Madame Faustier, and ask her to lend you some jewels. You are intimate enough with her to do that." She uttered out a cry. "True! I never thought of that." The next day she went to her friend and told her of her distress. Madame Forestier went to a wardrobe with a mirror, took out a large jewel box, brought it back, opened it, and said to Madame Loisel, "Choose, my dear." She saw first some bracelets, then a pearl necklace, then a Venetian gold cross set with precious stones, and admirable workmanship. She tried on the ornaments before the mirror, hesitated, and could not make up her mind to part with them, to give them back, so she kept asking, "Haven't you any more?" "Why, yes, look further. I don't know what you like." Suddenly she discovered in a black satin box a superb diamond necklace, and her heart throbbed with immoderate desire. Her hands trembled as she took it. She fastened it around her throat, and she was lost in ecstasy of the reflection of herself. Then she asked, hesitating, filled with anxious doubt, "Will you lend me this? Only this?" "Why, yes, certainly." She threw her arms around her friend's neck, kissed her passionately, and then fled with the treasure. The night of the ball arrived, and Madame Loisel was a great success. She was prettier than any other woman present, elegant, graceful, smiling, and filled with joy. All the men looked at her, asked her name, sought to be introduced. All the attachés of the cabinet wished to waltz with her. She was remarked by the minister himself. She danced with rapture, with passion, intoxicated by pleasure, forgetting all in the triumph of her beauty, in the glory of her success, and a sort of cloud of happiness composed of all this homage and admiration, and of that sense of victory which is so sweet to a woman's heart. She left the ball about 4 o'clock in the morning. Her husband had been sleeping since midnight in a little deserted anteroom with 3 other gentlemen whose wives were enjoying the ball. He threw over her shoulders the wraps he had brought, the modest wraps of common life, the poverty of which contrasted with the elegance of the ball dress. She felt this, and wished to escape so as not to be remarked by the other women, who were enveloping themselves in cozy furs. Loisel held her back, saying, "Wait a bit. You will catch a cold outside. I will call a cab." But she did not listen to him, and rapidly descended the stairs. When they reached the streets, they could not find a carriage, and began to look for one, shouting after the cabman passing at a distance. They went towards the sign in despair, shivering with cold. At last they found on the quay one of those ancient night-cabs which, as though they were ashamed to show their shabbiness during the day, are never seen around Paris until dark. It took them to their dwelling at Rue des Martyrs, and sadly they mounted the stairs to their flat. All was ended for her. As to him, he reflected that he must be at the ministry at 10 o'clock that morning. She removed her wraps before the glass, as to see herself one last time in all her glory. But suddenly she uttered a cry. She no longer had the necklace around her neck. "What is the matter with you?" demanded her husband, already half undressed. She turned distractedly towards him. I've lost Madame Forestier's necklace," she cried. He stood up bewildered. "What? How? Impossible!" They looked among the folds of her skirts, of her cloak, in her pockets, everywhere, but did not find it. "You are sure that you had it when we left the ball?" he asked. "Yes, I felt it in the vestibule of Minister's house. But if you had lost it in the streets, we would have heard it fall. It must be in the cab." "Yes, probably. Did you take its number?" "No. And you? Didn't you notice?" "No." They looked thunderstruck at each other. At last Loisel put on his clothes. "I shall go back on foot," he said, "over the whole route, to see whether I can find it." He went out. She sat waiting in a chair in her ball dress, without strength to go to bed, overwhelmed, without any fire, without a thought. Her husband returned about 7 o'clock. He had found nothing. He went to the police headquarters, to the newspaper offices to offer a reward. He went to the cab companies, everywhere, in fact, whither he was urged by the least spark of hope. She waited all day in the same condition of mad fear before this terrible calamity. Loisel returned at night with a hollow, pale face. He had discovered nothing. "You must write to your friend," said he, "that you have broken the clasps of the necklace and that you are having it mended. That will give us time to turn around." She wrote at his dictation. At the end of a week they had lost all hope. Loisel, who had aged 5 years, declared, "We must consider how to replace that ornament." The next day they took the box that had contained it and went to the jeweler whose name was found within. He consulted his books. "It was not I, madame, who sold that necklace. I must simply have furnished the case." Then they went from jeweler to jeweler, searching for a necklace like the other, trying to recall it, both sick with chagrin and grief. They found in a shop at Palais Royal a string of diamonds that seemed to them exactly like the one they had lost. It was worth 40,000 francs. they could have it for 36. So they begged the jeweler not to sell it for 3 days yet, and they made a bargain that he could buy it back for 34,000 francs in case they could not find the lost necklace before the end of February. Loisel possessed 18,000 francs, which his father had left him. He would borrow the rest. He did borrow, asking 1,000 francs of one, 500 of another, 5 louis there, 3 louis there. He gave notes, took up ruinous obligations, dealt with usurers and all the race of lenders. He compromised all the rest of his life, risked signing a note without even knowing whether he could ever meet it, and, frightened by the trouble yet to come, by the black misery that was about to fall upon him, by the prospect of all the physical privations and mortal tortures that he was about to suffer, he went to get the new necklace, laying upon the jeweler's counter 36,000 francs. When Madame Loisel took back the necklace, Madame Forestier said to her with a chilly manner, "You should have returned it sooner. I might have needed it." She did not open the case, as her friend had so much feared. If she had detected the substitution, what would she have thought? What would she have said? Would she not have taken Madame Loisel for a thief? Thereafter, Madame Loisel knew the horrible existence of the needy. She bore her part, however, with sudden heroism. That dreadful debt must be paid. She would pay it. They dismissed their servants. They changed their lodgings. They rented a garret under a roof. She came to know what heavy housework meant and the odious cares of the kitchen. She washed the dishes, using her dainty fingers and rosy nails on greasy pots and pans. She washed the soiled linen, the shirts and the dishcloths, which she dried upon a line. She took the slops down to the street every morning and carried up the water, stopping for breath at every landing. And she dressed like a woman of the people. She went to the fruiterer, the grocer, the butcher, a basket on her arm, bargaining, meeting with impertinence, eking out her miserable money sou by sou. Every month they had to meet some notes, renew others, obtain more time. Her husband worked in the evenings, making up a tradesman's accounts, and late at night he often copied manuscripts for 5 sous a page. This life lasted for 10 years. At the end of 10 years they had paid everything with the rates of usury and the accumulations of the compound interest. Madame Loisel looked old now. She had become the woman of impoverished households, strong and hard and rough. With frowsy hair, skirts askew, and red hands, she talked loud while washing the floor with great swishes of water. But sometimes, when her husband was at the office, she sat down near the window and thought of that gay evening of long ago, of the ball, where she had looked so beautiful and been so much admired. And what would have happened if she had not lost the necklace? Who knows? Who knows? How strange and changeful is life! How small a thing is needed to make or to ruin us! But one Sunday, having gone to take a walk in the Champs-Élysées, to refresh herself after the labors of the week, she suddenly saw a woman who was leading a child. It was Madame Forestier, still young, still beautiful, still charming. Loisel felt moved. Should she speak to her? Yes, certainly. And now that she had paid, she would tell her all about it. Why not? She went up. Good day, Jenny. The other, astonished to be familiarly addressed by this plain good wife, did not recognize her at all and stammered, But, madame, I do not know. You must be mistaken. No, I am Mathilde Loisel. Her friend uttered a cry. Oh, my poor Mathilde! How you have changed! Yes, I have had a very hard life since I last saw you, and great poverty, and that because of you. Of me? How so? Do you remember that diamond necklace you lent me to wear at the ministerial ball? Yes, well? Well, I lost it. What do you mean? You brought it back? I brought you back another exactly like it, and it has taken us 10 years to pay for it. You can understand that it was not easy for us who had nothing. At last it has ended, and I am very glad. You say you bought a necklace of diamonds to replace mine? Yes, you never noticed it then. It was very similar. And she smiled with a joy that was at once proud and ingenuous. Madame Forestier, deeply moved, took her hands. Oh, my poor Mathilde! Why, my necklace was paste. It was worth at most only 500 francs. The end of that tragic story. That just goes to show how important communication is. If only they would have spoken to each other, their lives wouldn't have been ruined. Well, I hope this didn't bring you down, but that you enjoyed it. Hope you liked it. Do feel free to give me a like if you did. Hope to see you next time. Bye.